What a great song right there by Solomon Lane, Grace. Do you understand what grace is? I'm enjoying every bit of time spent here. I'm seated with the encyclopedia, the moving encyclopedias of God.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Oh my
We're
goodness.
humbled.
We were talking about Jesus being the last testator.
Yes.
Now, just before you jump into there, and I know that you're the presenter, right?
Exactly.
But you got me on the program, on your program. You can chip in when you come.
Exactly. Not a problem. Anytime.
I just wanted to re-emphasize how profound he led us into each one of those covenants. And I've always been amused that God does nothing significant and nothing permanent unless there's a covenant.
Exactly.
Amen.
Because God bases his relationship
Amen.
on the covenant.
Yes.
So if God made Adam and made an Adamic covenant or Edenic covenant, he made Noah and makes a Noahic covenant,
Amen.
meets Abram and makes an Abrahamic covenant, meets Moses and makes a Mosaic covenant. I think that if God is going to do some great stuff in your life, if you're Minister Cage, I'm looking at a KJ covenant. Meaning, you got to have a personal relationship.
Done a Bishik.
Covenant. All right. I don't know if you're Andrew covenant, if you're Priscilla covenant.
Oh, yeah.
But what I'm saying is that you gotta have a covenant with God for
Amen.
God to do anything significant or anything permanent in your life, because He's a covenantal God.
Yes.
And so the testament is a covenant. So it's a covenant to God. I just wanted to emphasize
Exactly. What a
that
great
particular
point
one.
you
And
brought in.
each one of those covenants not only had a promise, it had a covenant sign, and all those elements that are important for a testament or a covenant. And so as we go into the covenant, you begin to see that the symbols of every covenant was different, and that is why the symbols of an old covenant and that of a new testament will be different
All right.
as we go by.
Exactly. We are also aware that in total we have about 613 laws rather. But then I want us to look at what point were the 10 Commandments given?
Right, let me pick it up from there. If you realize it's Exodus 20 verse 1, here's an opening statement. God says, I am the Lord your God.
Your God.
So he establishes a relationship first.
It's there already.
Not the commandments.
No.
It's a relationship. I am the Lord your God.
Wow.
The whole earth is mine, but you are my special people. And based on that, this is the next thing I did to you. I am the one who took you out from the house of bondage
Yes.
in Egypt.
You are now legal.
Based on that, therefore,
Oh my.
thou shalt not have any other God.
Oh my word.
Because you know me now, and I know you.
Yes.
Based on that, you shall not represent me with any graven images. Based on that, you shall not take my name in vain. Based on that, can you keep my Sabbath holy and honor your father and your mother?
Hey.
Do not murder, respect life.
Yes.
Do not commit adultery.
Oh.
Put boundaries
Yes.
in marriage. Do not bear false testimony. Respect other people's property.
Yeah.
Do not be covetous.
Oh my.
Be content with what you have. So these laws are being given based on a covenant on Sinai.
Yeah.
They are a relational family. That's how covenants work and how commandments work. So this covenant, the 10 commandments, if you read in the book of Deuteronomy, they are not called the 10 commandments.
No.
Okay.
It's called the table of testimony.
Okay.
So the 10 commandments that are a testimony that there was a relationship. So a Jew and another person, they will not be the same when they look at the 10 commandments.
Okay.
The other person just looks at a legal table of 10 commandments or laws. But for a Jew, they remind him of a relationship
Yes.
Wow.
with God.
Oh
So,
my.
so the purpose was to remind the children of Israel of the relationship they
The
had with
relationship.
God. Okay.
The commandment did not come out of the blue after coming from a constitutional conference. No. It is a result.
It wasn't debated on.
No, it's a family tie. God has earned the right to speak into Israel.
Okay.
To say, I can now tell you don't do A, B, C, D, because these are moral laws.
Yeah.
So moral laws are indispensable.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
Bish, you want to chip in?
Exactly.
Sure.
And now, the way he brings it out makes it awesome. Because you see, when you look at the Ten Commandments as, for lack of a better term, a rule book of the do's and don'ts. And a lot of people emphasize the don'ts. They don't. It becomes burdensome if you don't realize, keyword, that they are relational.
Okay.
In fact, those commandments are about the relationship of the man with their God and the man with each other.
Praise God. Praise God.
So,
Praise God.
if you understand, now, profoundly, listen, I haven't heard it the way he put it, like he put it today.
All right.
The number one, he establishes with a preamble, the opening statement being, I am the Lord, your
The
God.
definition.
Yeah.
So that's a relationship.
Yeah.
I am God, you are mine. Number two, he points out the fact that I am the God that brought you up. I mean, by the time the laws come, it should be a joy.
Yeah.
Because this is a relationship. It's like what we do when we get married.
Yeah.
You know, 21 years ago, my wife gave me a ring.
Okay.
And gave me marriage vows. It should not be burdensome for me to protect her. For me to love
It has to be
her.
natural.
For her to submit to me. Because it's based on relationship. When your wife finds it hard to submit to you, there's something wrong in the relationship.
Okay.
Yes.
All right? Well, when I spend anything I have on her, it is a joy. It's based on the relationship.
My goodness.
So number one, he established the relationship. Number two, he showed them I brought you up.
Okay.
So it is clear.
The commitment.
It's a commitment. If it's a marriage, I chose you.
Yes.
There were 6 million people in Zambia, but I chose you. There were 8 billion people in the earth,
In the world.
but I chose you.
you.
So that is the relationship. Based on that, then the following are the 10 commandments.
Okay.
So if we follow them, we have a healthy relationship with our God. We have a healthy relationship with one another.
All right.
And so we can steal, we won't be able to murder, we won't be able to commit adultery. Why? Because it's based on this relational.
All right, Bish, before you hang on, I want you to probably touch on what constitutes the New Testament.
Well, when you get into the New Testament, it's all about Jesus.
Amen.
It's about his death and resurrection. It's about his blood. So they becomes a distinction of the key word in the Old Testament, the Old Covenant, is you worked out your salvation with your works.
Okay.
So it was based on works. You will be able to do that. You won't be able to do that. So it was more works. And we'll come back to that, how Hebrews begin to compare that.
Yeah.
And begin to say, you know, there was a problem not just in the law, but this man wasn't able to fulfill this. All right?
Exactly.
This moral code was for his benefit.
Oh, yeah.
But it manifested his shortcomings, according to Paul in Romans.
Yes.
But ultimately, when it comes to the new covenant, the key word is going to be grace. If you miss it on grace and how to obtain grace, that which God has already worked out. When Jesus has to die, we begin to see, didn't John...
Now, Bish, I want you to probably explain a bit. When Jesus came, he said, I'm not here to abolish, rather to get rid of the Old Testament laws, but I'm here to fulfill them. In what manner did he fulfill the Old Testament?
Listen, in a nutshell, he came in the volume of the book. That's what he said about him. He came to fulfill each one of them. You saw him in his Jewish tradition, fulfill all the Jewish traditions,
which the priest failed to observe.
He came to fulfill it, so that when he carries out the fullness of what was required by the law, He is the only man who fulfills the whole law, so that by the time he dies on the cross, he is now saying, receive what I have achieved
For you and on your behalf.
On your behalf.
My goodness.
So that when you receive Jesus, you are fulfilling the fulfillment of. Now, one of the things about covenants is this, that covenants cannot be like removed. They rather are superseded by something higher.
Amen.
My goodness.
Yes.
Wow.
Very good.
Remember, I defined it by Wayne Grudem as an unchangeable.
Unchangeable.
Yes.
Divinely imposed.
Yes.
So when you do that, it's like the law of gravity.
It will never change. No
It is
matter
there.
what.
It is a law that God of nature, he has put in there. But do you realize, and I was talking to somebody who has just taken a flight, and they said, I have landed safely just before the beginning of the program.
Okay.
What happened is that they took off and
They
they were,
landed.
and they were in the air.
Uh-huh.
But you know something that
But
happened?
only for a time.
Yes, they had a higher law called the law of lift or aerodynamics.
Okay.
As long as that law is in effect, they were in the air.
Yeah.
My goodness.
If you want to know that gravity is still there, switch off the engines of the plane.
And you see how it will quick
You will
down.
quickly crash. All right? And so this old covenant is enforced. Only God raised a higher a law of grace.
Okay.
So if you don't need Jesus, I hope you can wake your salvation
All right.
by the old covenant, by works.
Okay. We'll check it out. Why not take a break? What song are you going to listen to?
Oh, come on. Would you bless us with Rebecca featuring Uche?
Uche.
Uche, we knew him from Double Double, but
Double Double.
listen to Rebecca featuring Uche.